I'm an animator who currently lives in Boston, Mass. Growing up, I was always interested in the arts. I took nearly every art class available in town. I made lots of short films with my friends, participated in school plays. Actually, in one of the musicals, I danced a tango with Mr. Gilbert. Totally happened, even if we won't admit it. Ask Madame Russell. My family moved to Maine sometime in the 1980s. Before that, they were refugees in Thailand, escaping a mass genocide in their homeland of Cambodia. Wasn't an easy transition. Cambodia at the time was a bit of a communist third world country. My family had to escape a crazy minefield, literally, of a dictatorship and come into a country where they had nothing, didn't speak the language, and had to try to salvage what was left of their lives. Not soon after, I was born. I was raised in between two very different cultures. My Khmer ancestry, steeped in tradition and custom, versus the American culture, a blended melting pot of all sorts of cultures and their own traditions. Which culture would I identify with more? Being in Mexico, Maine, with 97% of the population being Caucasian, there weren't too many folks that looked like me, or understood how confusing it was to be stuck in between two cultures. Being the only non-white person in the room can be a little uncomfortable, especially if you only spent time with your family. But it's how I grew up. I felt alienated for a while. I didn't know a lot of normal American customs, and I guess it showed. I ended up learning a lot about American culture through watching TV. Holidays, songs, and history were all things my parents weren't too knowledgeable about, and if I wanted to fit in, I would have to soak it up. I was determined not to have an accent, so I started speaking English all the time, to my folks, to my cousins, and to my siblings. I eventually started having a lot of trouble speaking Cambodian. I started losing touch with my heritage. My relatives began lamenting that I was too Americanized. I felt my life beginning to reflect what I saw on TV. My friends were all white, my accent nondescript. I finally fit in, but felt pretty alone. I struggled with my identity. I wanted to be American, but I didn't want to forsake my Asian roots. But what did that even mean? How was I supposed to balance both? When you struggle with these types of issues, it gets difficult to know who you are. Something that isn't defined by what you look like, or who you hang out with, or even what you enjoy doing. Interestingly, I began to find that other people were struggling with their identities as well. They even suffered bullying and other forms of harassment. Something had to be done. So with the support of the student body and faculty, we started the school's civil rights team, which is still around. How about that? Together, we showed solidarity between otherwise seemingly marginalized groups. I felt like I had a purpose. If who I am was defined by my actions, I would let them speak loudly. We held meetings, organized trips, and even met with other civil rights teams in Maine. The Maine Civil Rights Act is kind of a big thing, and we were part of it. I have faced racism. It's stupid. Actually, any form of discrimination is pretty ridiculous, but the racism I've witnessed is more subtle. It's not as angry and belligerent as you would think, though it has happened, but more restrained and faint. I realized after a little while that a lot of these problems were steeped in ignorance, not necessarily maliciousness. Part of that had to do with how we were being represented in media. Movies and TV shows just had it wrong. We were only sidekicks or background characters, even if the movie was supposed to be about us. They showed us as model minorities, bad guys, raging stereotypes galore. Asian men were depicted as super nerds, or silent kung fu fighters that never got the girl. Asian women were depicted as sexual objects or mysterious and deceitful dragon ladies. The worst part? If we weren't supposed to play those types of characters, they dress up white actors to play us instead. Indeed, Hollywood painted us with a pretty narrow and outdated brush. How are people supposed to identify with me if all they knew about my people were racial stereotypes and caricatures? We weren't people, we were props. I wanted to change that. And I wasn't the only one. When movies and other media wouldn't give us the attention we wanted, we sought other avenues. We were making opportunities for ourselves, getting recognition, slowly but surely. If you look at YouTube, many of the top channels are Asian kids who are just dying to get their voices heard. Blogs and other websites started popping up covering these kids and challenging the status quo. It's an uphill battle, but it was helping. We started appearing in stuff. It's tough to make anyone care about problems that don't necessarily include them, but I found that education and empathy are the biggest tools that help in tackling social issues. If people can identify with you, they can relate to your problems. It's not just your problem after that. Civil rights teams are important. Might not seem like it, but once you step outside your little bubble, you realize that education and empathy are in short supply. They're not really isolated cases either. The news doesn't always portray people the way they deserve to be. There's tons of issues that fall by the wayside because people take them at face value without educating themselves or caring about the people it affects. It has a fairly big impact. So, you should learn about other people, their problems, their struggles, and cultures. You're not only educating yourself and expanding your horizons, you're refusing to be part of an awful cycle that separates us based on irrational fears and apathy. The alternative? Yeah. Wow.